Two separate fires destroyed houses occupied by university students earlier this year. The first, at 133 Niagara Street, occurred on Wednesday, January 14th. It was determined that candles burning inside the apartment building caused the fire, and it temporarily left 9 students without a home. The second fire took place 1 month later, on Sunday, February 14th, at 310 Lake Street, also known as the Henry Van Hovenberg House, a historical landmark home. The cause of this fire was said to be an electrical malfunction within the walls. Josh Weister, a UW Eau Claire student who lived at 310 Lake Street, recalls the night his house burnt down.
It was Valentine's Day. I was reading in my apartment, and it was like 10 o'clock, the alarm started going off. And I was at first like, wow, that's really annoying, because they had gone off like several times. Like, they go off all the time, and like every time there would be a false alarm. So I was like, oh, no big deal. So after a couple minutes, I was like, well, this is really annoying. So I started going around the house, like checking the alarms.
Weister says that he searched the house to try and find any signs of a fire, but didn't see any smoke. By the time he walked around the outside of the house, he said it was too late.
It just went up so fast. It's like it was so old, and like so it went up really, really fast.
He says they got a call into 911 fairly quickly, but that brief moment of hesitation after the alarm sounded might have hurt the chances of saving the house. Scott Burkhart, the Division Chief of Training for Eau Claire Fire and Rescue, says false alarms from smoke detectors is a fairly common issue for homeowners, and it's one that affects how people react in emergency situations.
So ideally, that smoke detector never goes off and only goes off when there's a true emergency, so you would react appropriately to it. Well, the false alarms kind of give people the wrong impression of it.
He says it is the responsibility of homeowners and renters to maintain their smoke detectors. That means students should call their landlords if they experience problems with false alarms or otherwise faulty systems. Burkhart says the problem can usually be fixed by simply moving the alarms away from problem spots like kitchens and bathrooms, where smoke or even steam is more frequent. This type of proper maintenance may have helped in the case of the Lake Street fire. Weister says he didn't know of any other problems in the house and didn't suspect any major fire hazards.
The house itself was really nice. Like, you wouldn't have thought it was really old from the way it looked inside. And like something within the walls like that, I don't really know how you can catch that.
He says he and the other students living in the house got help almost immediately from the Red Cross and the church across the street. The university also did what it could to help.
Like I said, the university was really nice. They gave us, the people that were enrolled at the university, they gave us some money from the relief fund. They gave us all of our rental books again. We had to pay for new books that we had to purchase, so that kind of sucked.
He says he was worried initially, having lost everything inside the house and not having renter's insurance of any kind.
So I was like, wow, how am I going to do this? But like all the help that people gave us, like it was really nice. I was overwhelmed. I didn't expect like all the help that people offered.
Both of the houses that burned down belong to University Area Housing, which is owned by local business owner John Mogensen. Aaron Brewster, who has been a member of the 3rd Ward Neighborhood Association for 3 years, says he doesn't find it fair to simply point fingers at Mogensen or University Area Housing.
I'm not going to place the blame entirely on the landlords with that. Like, there's a lot of things that students do, that are potential, fire risk.
He says students generally do more things to put a house at risk of a fire than normal house owners. He says they may not pay close enough attention to the fire codes. They burn incense and candles more, and sometimes they simply have more people living in a house than there should be, leading to problems with electricity and clutter. Brewster says the fires most likely will not force any major changes to the city's housing regulations.
Because there's 2 fires right next to each other that are both in student property, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with the code or anything like that. I think there's potentially some enforcement issues that need to be looked at on certain things.
Burkhart agrees and says that these fires have caught a lot of people's attention, but are out of the ordinary.
And I know these 2 fires happen relatively close together, and so if you're not familiar with the history, you would think, oh, this happens a lot, but in reality, it's not that case. We've gone for many, many years without a significant fire down there.
Weister says his experience with University Area Housing has, quote, always been really, really nice. Nothing but enjoyable.
Anytime that I've rented through them for like the last 3 or 4 years, anytime that I've ever needed anything, like any kind of maintenance or anything, they've always been there. They've always been really well. Like, they've always been really good about sending someone over and making sure that stuff gets fixed, so.
Burkhart says the fire department is taking steps to raise public awareness regarding fire safety.
What we're actually doing is we're working with the Student Housing Authority a little bit more and stepping up our actions with that to get landlords and then also the students that occupy them more information on maintaining those smoke detectors.
Brewster says he also sees room for improvement, but he is focused on ensuring that students and landlords improve the general standards they hold for their rentals. He is working with the Third Ward Neighborhood Association to come up with a new non-governmental group that will do this.
The basic idea is to get the good landlords on board, and they would pay a certain fee to be a member based on the number of units and things like that. But then students, in order to rent from the good landlords, would have to join as well for like $15 a year or something. Significantly cheaper than the landlords, but something like that. And then we'd have a higher set of standards for student housing than the city does.
Through both public awareness of fire safety and higher standards of student housing, disasters like those which destroyed the apartment at 133 Niagara Street and Weister's home at 310 Lake Street could become more preventable. The Eau Claire Fire Department is working with the university to find ways to spread information to its students. For more information or to contact them, visit www.eauclairewi.gov. The Third Ward Neighborhood Association meets once a month to discuss housing and neighborhood issues and encourages feedback from the public. Their website can be found at www.thirdward.org. Reporting for CJ429, I'm Andy Plank.